Hey guys, Paul here on APS Amplifier. So today I wanted to talk about Banlist fever that people seem to be experiencing right now. It's that time of year where Konami has not released a ban list when it feels like maybe they should have, and players are getting a little impatient, aren't they? It's funny because, if you go on any of Konami's social media posts, you'll pretty much see people, going on and on about like the ban list. Where is it, Konami? Give it to us. Ban list, ban list, ban list. Where is it? And there's memes and people kind of joke about it and stuff. And I always look at these like comments, and I kind of find myself thinking, maybe people obsess a little bit too much over getting new ban lists. Now, I want to be clear here. I totally get it. I've played competitive Yu-Gi-Oh. I've played casual Yu-Gi-Oh. It affects both, and there's some really good reasons why you would want a new ban list. If you're planning to travel to events, especially this summer where it's like kind of the national season is starting, it would be really important to know, what the format's going to be, what decks you want to kind of invest your time and money into building, testing, and just that sort of thing, right? So I totally get why people would want a ban list. That said, though, it kind of made me think. I feel like the ban list has, at this point, almost become something more than just a ban list, if that makes sense. So it sort of feels as though it's less about what exactly is hit on the list and more about the ban list as a concept and what it means to people. I would argue that these days, the ban list is almost kind of more like an event, right? It's something that we look forward to because this is what we call ban list season. But season kind of implies that it's something that comes, something that goes, something that you're really familiar with. And it's true, right? Like basically about 2.5 months into any given format these days, we are sort of clamoring for a new list. That's where the early ban list predictions start to arise, right? Like, oh, maybe they should hit this, maybe they should hit that. And it's fun, to be clear. I think that ban list discussion is something that's really fun. Obviously, I am a Yugi tuber, so I have done plenty of ban list predictions, ban list discussion, ban list review, what should get hit. I like to hear people kind of describing what they think should get hit in the game because they're like usually formats. This one is no stranger to it, but usually in a lot of formats, there's like different decks that people consider problems and different cards that people consider to be problems. And I like getting kind of the mix of opinions about like what the problem cards are and what should get hit. And there's also kind of a dynamic of not just what should get hit, but also like what will get hit. And those are oftentimes two different things, right? Like sometimes Konami, it feels like they're more, money product motivated, right? Like, okay, this new product is released, so they're not going to hit anything from it. It's too soon. And also, it might just be that like a top tier deck hasn't gotten to have its sort of like 6 months or 9 months or 12 months in the spotlight. Even that sort of seems to be changing because it seems like people are already, like tired of Cashdera and want it to get hit. But interestingly enough, Cashdera really only like sort of came onto the scene in Photon Hypernova. Yes, I know there were cards released for it before then, but like that's when the sort of Cashdera deck, right, sort of became a thing. And so that was only in like what, February? And it's only like May. So that's something too. That's like I've noticed that kind of people's patience or whatever for like a kind of a given deck to be on the scene has decreased a little bit. People sort of see a deck dominating and they're ready for it to get hit like within 3 months, which is sort of different from like how I remember it being even just a few years ago, where a lot of decks like take like 2019 Toss format or whatever, things like Salamangreat and Sky Strikers and Thunder Dragons were decks that kind of stayed around for a good like 9 months or so, 12 months in some cases. So it's a little bit weird that people are getting this impatient. And so that brings me to my actual point here, which is that I sometimes think that people let the ban list sort of control so much of their just decision making and so much of their actual enjoyment of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's something that maybe takes a little bit of introspection. So, like, I will read on social media all the time where people are, like they're clamoring for this ban list and they start to get a little bit angry, right? Like, people they get kind of furious. They're fussing with Konami about like why the hell have y'all not released this? I'm getting tired of this game. I'm considering quitting because you guys won't release this ban list. And let's face it, no one's quitting Yu-Gi-Oh. They're going to be antsy and keep waiting because like the same people saying that they're going to quit or saying that like they're frustrated about it and Konami needs to hurry up or they're giving up. They're still going to play. They're still going to follow that page. They're still going to comment the next day. It's just this thing where I kind of have gotten a little bit over the ban list. Reason being, one, it oftentimes doesn't actually change as much as you think it changes. Now, don't get me wrong, if you're kind of at the edge of competition, you're playing at YCS events, you're playing like regionals every weekend, then yes, I think it's highly relevant. But I think that for the average player at locals, the ban list actually doesn't change nearly as much as just kind of new products tend to change the game, or even just the passage of time naturally, particularly in recent years where Konami has kind of dialed back some of their ban list hits. It sort of feels like they are much more hesitant to hit cards. Ban lists are usually a little bit more mild and slap on the wrist sort of hits. And outside of just a few isolated examples, that's kind of been the case for the last few years. And so what it means is that maybe a ban list will hit like half a dozen cards, maybe a dozen cards. Surprisingly, that's not a big part of the card pool. For the average player, their deck isn't going to really change. I think what people are looking for in these ban lists, maybe even more so than an actual change of format, is just kind of the ray of hope that it sort of provides you with. It's this idea that maybe if the ban list is like this perfect thing, then suddenly I'll win locals every week, or suddenly my rogue deck will be top tier. But in reality, that's rarely going to be the case, right? I mean, like, most rogue decks don't really get hit by the ban list because they're not strong enough to, and at best, you can maybe expect maybe if you've been losing to Kashtira a lot, then it might get hit, and so you want to deal with that. But then the next sort of top tier threat or whatever is still going to appear, right? Like right now, that looks like it's Super Heavy Samurai and Pirelli. They're kind of like the big new things in the scene. So even if you find Kashtira annoying, I think people will likely be complaining about the next deck anyway. There's always going to kind of be strong decks. So yeah. Now there is also the kind of possibility with a lot of these ban lists that like you'll get a cool new card off the list that kind of mixes things up. I remember when we got things like Change of Heart and people got really excited about that. They thought that could be a really fun, like shake up to the game. Didn't exactly end up really being that. I mean, some people do side deck it, but it's cool just the possibility of it. So that's something I can reason with. It's just, I don't know. Like I find myself getting almost like laughing when people just seem like they just explode with emotion on these Konami posts about like where the ban list is and what they're threatening to do, and just accusing Konami of hating their players and like letting this game just run in the ground. This format's so awful. It's like, I don't know. I mean, next format won't be like loads better or loads worse. It all just kind of like it's probably not really going to change that much for you, and you shouldn't really let it affect your personal enjoyment of the game unless you are really at the edge of competition, right? Like, you're really like going on that YCS grind and things like that. I hope this video didn't come across as like maybe too negative. I know that like I'll be fair. I will say that there are things that Konami should do, because it's not like just, oh, the players are awful and they just need to stop. I do think Konami needs to be more transparent about these ban lists. They do need to just give actual dates. I'm sure there are some internal reasons why maybe they prefer to not have like, concrete dates, but this whole like, what was once a concrete date and then became like no sooner than that, and then now it's literally just in a few months. Like, these are Konami's words. These are the things that they're using to describe when a ban list will hit. That does give a lot of player anxiety. So I think that they need to at least get back to like no sooner than dates, or really even maybe just like give actual dates again, make it quarterly. I mean, I think that if it was up to me, just a bit of a quick aside, I think that they should maybe do ban lists, like go back to the whole like once every 6 months. I think that we need to build more like patience and adaptation, as opposed to like clamoring for ban lists every 2 or 3 months just to like fix the things that we're immediately angry about. Because a lot of times time will sort of like just make things evolve, right? Like the adventure token engine, big thing last year, not a thing this year. It didn't get hit on the ban list, just isn't a huge thing. Sword Soul, same story. Like, not really hit on the list outside of the really early, like, Arch Nemesis Protos hit, and it just kind of faded. A lot of cards and powerful things that people complain about, they kind of go away with time, but it doesn't mean that Konami shouldn't at least be maybe giving some ban list dates. And also, I still think patch notes would be a really great thing. I think that with patch notes, people could get a better insight into what Konami's thinking with these lists and where their heads are at around how they analyze the format. I think that would give players maybe a better sense of calm, because it feels like when this list comes out, people will still probably be dissatisfied and people will still be angry. And so, I think Konami needs to do better on the communication front to absolve that. Anyway, that's the video. Let me know what you guys think about it. I mean, do you feel like the ban list kind of really dictates your enjoyment of the game, or have you found, ways to just kind of build your own decks, adapt, change, whatever, not really let it bother you too much? That's at least where I stand on it, but I'd love to hear what you guys think down in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to APS Amplifier. We've got lots of great content coming out on this channel, and check out some other Paul Talks videos or our new podcast, The Pod Agreed. All right, it's going to be it. See you in the next one. Pass turn.